We're back with another episode of Enduins Level One, where we start a fresh game, give our initial impressions on it, and tell you how it is. I'm your host, Dobie from the Replays, and let's get our game on and start from Level 1. The Yakuza franchise is one that had eluded me personally for the longest time, with my impression of the game from an outsider's point of view being about a Japanese badass that can sing. There were moments where the Yakuza series would trend and reach non-Yakuza fan bases just because of Baka Mitai or the song that goes Dame Dane, and I still didn't understand how the game actually was. Now here we are with Yakuza Kiwami 3, a remake of the original Yakuza game from scratch, but Kiwami. Before anything else, we need to explain what Kiwami's actual translation is: extreme. What makes this remake extreme though, it was still foreign to me up until my first fight in the game. Oh cool! Here's a tank, that till I realized, oh, I was in a tutorial sequence. Then the training wheels finally came off and I was treated with the actual experience, and boy was the beatdown glorious. Prior to this though, I had to go through a 10-minute cutscene to make sense of what was happening, and another 10 to 20 assuming I wanted to know about the previous games too. Information overload was definitely felt, but the pacing does get better, and the random interactions everywhere, no matter how stupid or nonsensical they were, make you want to go into completionist mode. As a game, Yakuza Kiwami 3 is an action-adventure with you traversing around Japan as Kazuma Kiryu, and fighting thugs and other riffraff with major Yakuza officials in a beat-em-up. If you've ever played wrestling games by WWE growing up, or maybe recall the days of traditional beat-em-up games like Streets of Rage or TMNT, you'd have an idea of how combat would go around. You would even pick up weapons you could use to aid in your fights and even use them for finishers. Famously, or rather infamously enough, you could even do mini-games in games like karaoke or darts for your leisure. I'm sure they have a purpose later on in the game, but at the beginning stages, they're just here to keep your mind off of things. I think this isn't reiterated enough, but the game doesn't just have mini-games, but full-on Sega emulators. I played some obscure titles as I bumped into them in my playthrough, and there was even a UFO claw catcher. There was even a Neo Geo emulator, and honestly, if you're a Sega fan, and you just want to play some of their older games, Yakuza Kiwami 3 will deliver, giving your sense of nostalgia a show and then some. On the actual gameplay though, I particularly enjoyed how it feels like a power fantasy, while still giving you that sense of adventure. Will I be able to beat this crowd of thugs or not? That is a question, but another question that I had playing the game is, how could I beat those thugs? Sure, you can go at it with your bare hands and finish them with a suplex or a random weapon, but Kiwami 3's combat is surprisingly complex, with another fighting style being available come the second chapter. I genuinely enjoyed wailing on lower enemies, and the challenge of the stronger enemies wasn't as bad when you stop playing like a caveman and think a bit. I swear I didn't remember there was a skill tree. Early on in the game, I don't think there's anything necessarily bad with the game experience. There's so much variety on what you can do, and honestly the pacing isn't stressful enough for you to completely ignore side quests since they're in the way of your main objective. But if I had to pinpoint one aspect in particular, it would have to be the player onboarding process, and maybe the amount of collectibles available in the game. Remember how I missed out on the skill tree? That part wasn't entirely explained even for a first time playthrough. The main gimmick that actually let me know about the franchise at all in karaoke was easily skippable by accident, which I did, and for the conversational sections, let's just say there's no back reading. There's also way too many collectibles in the game, like making la 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 friends, or the random suitcases or random keys out of nowhere. Maybe it's a minor nitpick, but this seems like one of the biggest ways to distract players from how much game is actually in there. But at least it's fully optional. Undoubtedly, Yakuza Kiwami 3 is one of those games that you shut your brain off and just enjoy the ride. Feeling like a male telenovela complete with a heart of gold protagonist and a fun group of characters, you'll enjoy the immersion the longer you play the game. I didn't get the hype at first as an outsider, but the more I'm invested in the world of Yakuza, the more I look up to Kiryu Kazuma and his noble deeds. There's even a demo out there to let you have a glimpse at the game, but without a doubt, it's a franchise you should try at least one game from. Especially from like 1 to 6, since 7 changes genres. At Enduins Level 1, we'd give an ELO verdict based on the game's difficulty, and after all that's said and done, Yakuza Kiwami 3 gets a medium ELO verdict. Not dismissing the fact that there's a difficulty option for individuals that want to enjoy the story, there comes a point where button mashing doesn't do much and playing it safe in fights is the way. On normal difficulty, I struggled with the first actual boss of the game, but a little struggle hurt no one and the fights will get harder as the game progresses. Yakuza Kiwami 3 is a fun game not to be taken too seriously, and it makes sense that the franchise has the fans that it does. Honorable, absurd, and sometimes even mental, the Kiwami 3 experience is a fun one. The fact that the minigames and the emulator itself work so well make buying the game even more worth it, but for me, hearing Kiryu's majestic voice just made my heart melt.